only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
The National Weather Service has issued a severe thunderstorm warning.
Welcome to the Common Sense Practical Prepper Podcast, where prepping doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. Coming to you from a well-defended off-grid compound high in the mountains. Coming to you from his Florida room in Richmond, Virginia. Neither off-grid nor well-defended, unless you count as chickens and cats. Here is your host, Keith.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Common Sense Practical Prepper Podcast. My name is Keith, and this is episode 24. Today is November 22nd, 2022. The war between Russia and Ukraine continues. Not a lot to report since the last podcast, and I haven't heard much more about that errant missile that landed in Poland. I guess initially it did not fit Zelensky's narrative. Now, I'm not ragging on Zelensky as a whole, but like I said before, I found it a bit alarming that the smoke had not even cleared, and he is on the internet broadcasting all over the world that this was Russia's fault. I'm not saying he's a good guy. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. But all governments are corrupt, and I just got a bad feeling about this. I've spoken earlier about the only winners in a war like this are the defense contractors, the arms dealers that provide the munitions, to these armies, in this case, to the Ukrainian army. There is not a doubt in my mind that 75 cents of every dollar that the United States sends over there does not end up on the battlefield. It ends up in some bureaucrat's pocket, some oligarch's pocket. I doubt very seriously if the majority of that money goes towards the purchasing of arms and armaments to help repel the Russian army. So winter is starting to settle in Ukraine, and as a general rule, the battlefield will slow down some. Russia is still targeting the Ukrainian infrastructure, water treatment plants, electricity, denying the Ukrainians the ability to stay warm in hopes of forcing them to the peace table, I guess you could say. But Zelensky has vowed over and over and over that this is not going to happen. He will under no circumstances will Ukraine surrender any part of the country. So the battles rage on, and I don't see any end in sight. But there has to be an end at some point. I just have no idea when that's going to be. Speaking of winter, Buffalo, New York, depending on what area near Buffalo, the lake effect snow set in several days ago. 6 feet of snow. Now, the snow total itself is one story. The other story to this is how quickly that snow came down. 2 to 3 inches of snow per hour over a period of several hours. I think a 24-hour period. 6.5 feet, almost 7 feet in a few areas. No snow plows are going to be coming down your street when you have 6 feet of snow. The mailman is not going to deliver your mail in 6 feet of snow. You're not going to be able to get out of your driveway, let alone get out of your house. Well, I guess you could climb up on the roof or climb up maybe the second story and jump out into the snow. But that's basically a situation where the majority of the city, especially the neighborhoods and the suburbs, are going to be at a complete standstill. And not much is going to happen. So winter weather in New York is not a new thing. whether it's snow, ice, or just the bitter cold itself. But when you talk about that amount of snow coming down in that short period of time, it's only going to cause significant hardships pretty much for everybody. Law enforcement, EMS, you have a medical emergency at your house, unless they're coming on snowmobiles or by dog sled, assistance is not going to get to you in a timely manner. But folks are used to bad weather up there. They had time to prepare if they needed to prepare. So you would hope, at the very least, they have an extra case or two of water. They're going to lose power. They have a stove. They have a grill. They have a generator. I think in a situation like that, if I lived in a city and they said 6 feet of snow, I would probably at a minimum have a week's worth of food and water set aside. Now, I personally have more than that here with me now. But if I was just Joe Bag of Donuts and I lived up in Buffalo and this weather was coming, I better go to the grocery store and stock up on those items. So if there's 3 or 4 people in the family, I'm going to go ahead and stock up accordingly, and I'm going to go for about a week. I'm going to hedge my bets and say if we get 3, 4, 5, 6 feet of snow, couple 3 days in, I'm going to be shoveling myself out at least to be able to get to the street. Hopefully some plows are coming through, some heavy equipment, front end loaders, road graders, anything. And you would think at the 6-day mark that you've got people moving around, public transportation, the major arteries, the major thoroughfares are clear, and you're able to get out and try to conduct some business. You have a situation where a lot of employees, like folks that work at banks, grocery stores, even some doctors and nurses that work at hospitals, regardless if you have a 4-wheel drive or not, but it is upstate New York, and pretty much everybody has a sled, everybody has a snowmobile. Sometimes I call them sleds in the garage. 4-wheelers work, 3-wheelers work. I can just imagine. I guess if I go on YouTube and look for videos, I'll see plenty of people zipping up and down their streets on snow machines, snowmobiles, sleds, whatever you want to call them. And you got your 4-wheelers, your side-by-side. So I'm sure eventually people were able to at least get out, at least have a little bit of fun. How big of a snowman can you build with 6 feet of snow? You probably build a pretty good-sized snowman. I read a couple people died in the storm. Now, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, these folks had a heart attack, cardiac arrest when they were out shoveling their driveway, their sidewalk, and that's exactly what happened. With snowfall coming down that rapidly, you need to worry about your roof. Is the structure of your roof, is that able to hold that much of a snow load? Is it structurally sound? Do you have to crawl out through the attic window and try to get as much snow off as you can? Because it's going to freeze, it's going to turn to ice, and if it's a heavy snow, that's even worse. But a light, fluffy snow, you're able to move around a little bit better than snow that becomes real heavy and real compact. So unfortunately, 2 people lost their lives due to cardiac arrest. Shoveling snow is not an easy task. It puts a tremendous strain on the body. So here's to the folks in Buffalo, New York, still digging themselves out 6 days later. I mentioned on the last podcast I was going to do a detailed inventory of my preps that was completed over the weekend, and the results were kind of what I suspected. I have enough tuna, and canned chicken breast to float a battleship. I'm good with honey. My canned vegetables, no issue there. And then I started looking kind of on the periphery. I'm like, well, let's look at kind of, I guess you could call them luxury items, I guess. A bug-in situation, you're going to be, stuck inside. I've got some 3-bean salad. I've got some maple syrup, several pounds of pancake mix, and a few other things. Oh, some really nice olives. I kind of splurged on some olives at Costco. So if you're stuck inside for whatever reason, I'm going to break out the pancake syrup and the olives. Sounds like a party to me. And what I'm going to concentrate on next is I guess it's a way to cook some of that food. Now, the vast majority of it, it's already in jars, it's already in cans. I've got a lot of it freeze dried, vacuum sealed, that sort of thing. But you're going to need a way, with 40 or 50 dozen eggs. If anybody needs eggs, let me know. You have to reconstitute those with water, and you make sure you factor in the amount of water that you're going to need, especially for a long-term grid down situation. 2 or 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, the water you have going to be more than enough to drink, cook, personal hygiene. But for an extended period of time, you'll probably need to calculate it out and try to be a bit more precise. So with those eggs, I need a way to cook the eggs. Now I have a huge Blackstone grill, a couple, three or four propane cylinders, extra propane cylinders. We're good to go there. I have a generator that I could tie to my main breaker box to power the oven. And then I have a butane stovetop. Could certainly use that. So I think that's what I'm going to concentrate on next. I want to make sure I have enough of the butane, the butane fuel, and see if there's any other options out there. I do not have a rocket stove. I know I'm kind of intrigued by those, but do not have one of those. So that's kind of the next thing. The freeze dryer is doing quite well. Thank you for asking. I freeze dried some candy and some eggs, not at the same time. Like I said, I have enough Skittles to probably last until the second coming. Man, those things are good. I made Spaceman ice cream. I took, probably 15 or 20 ice cream sandwiches. Made sure they were frozen solid. And a regular ice cream sandwich, let's see, I cut it in 8 or 10 pieces, I think. I think it was 10 pieces. Pretty small, pretty bite-sized pieces. Did all 4 trays. It didn't take as long as I thought. I thought it was going to take quite a bit of time. About 12 hours, I took it out and grabbed a piece. And I guess the sandwich part, the chocolate wafer thing that's on the outside of an ice cream sandwich, I don't know what you call it. I just eat the silly things. I detected a little bit of moisture in there, but I was having a hard time figuring it out because once I put it in my mouth, the saliva in your mouth immediately starts to reconstitute. So I was having a difficult time. Was there still moisture into the cookie part of the ice cream sandwich, I guess? Or was it just my own saliva? So I stuck it back in for another hour or two just to be on the safe side. But actually pretty good. I have all those sitting in a big Tupperware bowl on a shelf next to the freeze dryer with an oxygen absorber in it, and I'm actually surprised they made it through the weekend. Now, I cannot say that the extra ice cream sandwiches that were in the freezer that I did not freeze dry, I cannot guarantee those were not consumed. But I do know for sure the ice cream, Spaceman ice cream that I made is still around. There's not a lot of it, but there's still some of it. Let's talk about the potential rail strike. Gosh, we talked about that maybe a month or so ago, about how I believe it's 12 unions, all the different unions that represent all the different workers. Yet all 12 unions have to ratify the proposal that's put forward for it to be accepted and then for everything to go into effect. If one union does not vote and accept or ratify the proposal, nothing moves forward. So here is a situation, and this is, I'm not an economist, I'm not a politician, but this is how I see things like this. The U.S. economy will collapse very quickly in the event of a rail strike. It doesn't have to be a rail strike that lasts 2 or 3 months. It doesn't have to be a rail strike that lasts 10 days. Almost immediately in the event there is a rail strike, the vast majority of products that get to our stores and eventually to us, do we put in our mouth, comes by rail. A lot comes by truck, but a lot starts out as rail, ends up on trucks, or vice versa. Starts on trucks, ends up on rail. In the event of a strike, there's not enough truck drivers just to step in and say, I got this. They're busy hauling what they normally haul. In the event there's a rail strike, 50,000 truck drivers aren't going to fall from the sky and jump into their magic trucks and pick up stuff from the docks and off the rail cars. So this is what I think is going to happen. The government's going to step in like the government has several times, and they're going to be a mediator. They're going to be the middleman, and they're going to talk with both the railroad companies and the unions representing the rail workers. Each side is going to have to give a little bit. So for the sake of conversation, let's say all of the unions want a $50 pay raise, $50 an hour. We want $50 an hour pay raise. And I'm just making stuff up. Automatically, the government then turns to the rail companies and says, okay, the guys at the end of the table want a increase of $50 an hour. So the railway companies go, oh, no way. There's no way we can give you 50. We'll give you 15. And then the mediator turns to the side and says, hey, the railroad companies want to give 15. Oh, no way. That's an insult. We'll take 40. And they go back and forth, back and forth. We want more vacation. We don't want to be on call. We want double time, holiday time, whatever it happens to be. Better health care. They're going to go back and forth till eventually a deal is going to be struck and it'll be ratified. It's in nobody's best interest for there to be a rail strike. So the railroad companies are saying the workers and the country cannot afford a strike. And the railway workers are kind of in the same boat, but on the other side of the coin. We don't want to strike, but we want X, Y, and Z. So I think there's going to be a middle ground somewhere. The government's going to step in and say, this is what we're going to do. This will be in effect for 2 years, 5 years, 8 years. It'll get ratified, and then everybody will have a little countdown clock in their office to the day that particular contract or those contracts expire, so we can start this baloney all over again. So if the railroad companies don't get what they want, they will say, we had to give some concessions, but next time, this is what we're going to get. The unions, on the other hand, will say to their workers, we got the $15 an hour raise. I know you guys wanted 50, but here's our 15. And in 3 years, when these contracts expire, we're going to get you that extra 35 an hour or whatever to get you to 50. And then the union workers will look at each other, kind of nod their heads. All right. Well, that's something. Okay. But we're coming after you in 3 years, you railroad companies. Whatever. We're in a recession. The recession's getting worse. Prices are increasing. Gas prices here in Central Virginia have stabilized, if not dropped a few cents. But make no mistake about it, folks. The guy who's not an economist is going to give you his opinion. This will get much worse before it gets better. I know I spoke last podcast about the layoffs with some major companies, major tech companies, Amazon, Intel, Oracle, all that. That will all continue. If folks coming up here at Christmas do not purchase as much as they did last year, year before, we're certainly not going to be purchasing what we did during COVID because, one, the economy's in much worse shape. And we have the ability of getting out of our homes, so we're not really in our homes under, lockdowns or whatever you want to call it. We have the ability to go out, so we're literally not stuck behind our phones or the computers, ordering everything from toilet paper to, we order everything. From toilet paper to mayonnaise. No idea why I said mayonnaise, but I said it. Toilet paper and mayonnaise, that's all we order in a pandemic during a lockdown. You heard it here first. So I know I'm not spending as much this Christmas. Most of my friends and family members are not spending as much as we did last Christmas and even the Christmas before because there's just so much uncertainty. Stock market's in the tank and the economy's not far behind. Okay, folks, I'm going to do a quick review on the EcoFlow River 2 Max. I know I spoke about that. I think last podcast I told you I was going to give you a review. So here's what I can tell you about EcoFlow as a whole. I have 3 EcoFlow products here at the house. I have the Delta Pro, which is their largest solar generator, and I have an extra battery. It's a 3.5 kilowatts for that's 3,500 watts, Delta Pro, and then the battery is basically another 3.5 kilowatts. So you're looking at about 7 kilowatts of power. Now, it's lithium ion phosphate battery, so if I say 7 kilowatts, there's an efficiency factor that you have to factor in. Efficiency factor that you factor in. You know what I'm saying. You have to take that into consideration. That you're not 7 kilowatts, you're not going to get exactly 7 kilowatts of power out of this system. 80%, 85%, something like that. Again, just nice round numbers, 7 kilowatts. It's the Delta Pro and the extra battery that goes with the Delta Pro. They have handles, they have wheels. I would not say they're portable. They weigh nearly 100 pounds apiece. So I guess if you're very strong or you want to tow along a 100-pound boat anchor, I guess in a sense it is. However, the River 2 Max I like it. It is truly portable. So lithium ion phosphate battery. Now the battery life is 3,000 cycles. And when they talk about a cycle, that's from 100% down to 0. So if you do that 3,000 times, if you do that every day, you're looking at about 10 years, give or take? So you do that every day from 100 to 0 and charge it back up. At the end of that life cycle, at the end of 3,000 of those, the battery will still be at 80%. So that's kind of when you're looking at data and information that some of these companies put out about their products, they'll say 3,000 life cycles to 80% of the original battery life. So it has kind of a handle built in. It's 13 pounds, about 13 and a half pounds. So it's you could take it camping. It's something in the case of a power outage. Now this one is 512 watt hours. Very simple explanation on watt hours. Let's just say 500. 500 watt hours. If you have an item that draws 500 watts on this particular solar generator, it will run for 1 hour. If you have something that draws 250, 2 hours. So when you see something, 512 watt hours, 1,000 watt hours. If you have something that draws 1,000 watts, that's a lot of watts. It will run for 1 hour. You can charge this particular device 4 different ways. I was aware of 3 of them, and then I was going through the manual. I'm like, I didn't realize, there was a 4th, but it is. Okay, you can plug it into the wall, AC. You can use solar, direct solar, 2. You can charge through like the cigarette lighter adapter in your car. That's 3. And then through a USB-C. It's going to take a while to charge it on the USB or the USB-C, folks, but still, that's kind of a cool option. If it's at 0, what EcoFlow says, you can charge it from 0 to 100% in about an hour. Well, if you look at the fine print, this is how this works. Most of these solar generators and portable power stations, I guess is another word. So a lot of the nicer ones, you have the ability of adjusting the rate of charge. So some of these will charge 800, 900 watts. So it will pull that from the wall. Now, you can do that, and it will degrade the battery over time, but just by a tiny bit. If there is a need to charge this power station with 600, 700, 800 watts, you can certainly do that, but you're sacrificing a little bit of the battery life. Normally, by default, these particular items with EcoFlow are set at 400 watts. Now, at 400 watts, the fans will kick on. They're not very loud. It needs to, keep the interior of the power station cool. I knock mine down to 300 watts. The fans rarely come on. It'll take a little longer to charge it to get it up to 100%, but if I'm not in a hurry, that's not a deal breaker for me. I can go ahead and take my time. 11 different plugs. You got your AC, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, you got 3 USB, a USB-C, you got the super fast charge USB, the cigarette lighter adapter, and a couple barrel plugs. So very versatile, very lightweight, very portable, something certainly you can take on the go. And you've got the River series. It's the River series with EcoFlow, the River, EcoFlow River Max, River 2 Max. You've got the Pro, and then you just have the regular, I think it's just the EcoFlow River 2. And again, the River 2 is the smaller of the three. The Max is kind of in the middle. And then you have the Pro. Of course, anything has a Pro after it. Obviously, it's going to be better than than the wood previously. So I really enjoyed that product. Like I said, I've got 3 EcoFlow products in total, and I've had really good luck with them. Customer service for me has been very responsive. You look at Amazon, other sorts of reviews on their website, and then Amazon product reviews. A lot of people will say that customer service is bad. I've only had good experiences with their customer service. No significant language barrier. Now, I'm talking to folks that, English is not their first language. These are made in China. I know that comes as a surprise to a lot of people. These are made in China. But they've been pretty responsive, pretty receptive to, any suggestions that I've made or what about this. They have a fantastic app that's very user-friendly. Control everything by the app. Hook it up to your wireless. You could be 200 miles away. Bring it up on the app. State of charge, all sorts of things. Update the firmware. The firmware updates on all their items is much easier than it was 6 months ago. It was difficult to get the firmware updates to take the first time. So when I got the River 2 Max, I was like, oh no, please have fixed this. And they did. Literally push a button, grabs your wireless network, and within 2 or 3 minutes, you've got the updated firmware, which is a huge improvement over the last time. Okay, folks, I have run a little long. You know me, I could just talk forever. So again, folks, you can reach me on the Twitter, Common Sense Practical Prepper Podcast, and I think the official Twitter name is prep_podcast. You can, I guess, put either of those in the search bar, and you can check out my feed. I don't follow a lot of political figures or political pundits on there. For the most part, it's folks that are into prepping, freeze drying, that sort of thing. The email address you can reach me at is practicalpreppodcast@gmail.com. As always, folks, be safe, take care of one another, and until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Common Sense Practical Prepper Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. While you're at it, help spread the word by leaving a rating and review.